this session, and we're going to leave it over to our friend Liz to lead today. What myself and Claire and Will do, we'll just make sure that we keep an eye on the chat box as best we can. We've got a big group of people in today, so if you could just put any questions in the chat box and we'll monitor that, that'd be fantastic. Also, if anybody's struggling with their internet and manages to get themselves kicked out for any reason, please just rejoin the link and we'll admit you straight back from the waiting room. Okay. I'm going to shortly hand over to Liz, but if you just want to, it's like she preempted me there. So I'm just going to go through a couple of house rules. Anybody who's been on any of the sessions earlier, you will have seen these. I won't labour on them. With just a couple of things, please make sure you're on mute on the microphone. That'd be fantastic. And also, just to help with our bandwidth, if you could keep your webcams turned off, that would be absolutely brilliant. And hopefully we won't lose anybody from this session. And I think that's about it. Oh, the other thing, so this is quite an interactive session, so hopefully you've got pens and papers or something close at hand. So Liz is waving in the air. If there's anything you want to share, please, if you're brave enough to share it on social media, please do so. Just using the hashtag the big reboot, and that would be wonderful. So just on that, I will now hand over, and I'm really, really pleased to be able to introduce Liz Burkinshaw. Liz is immensely experienced learning and development professional and someone I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of years. And this is going to take us through something called Sketchnoting, linked to wellbeing, but I won't say any more. I won't spoil Liz's intro, but I will hand you over and leave you in her capable hands for the next 40 minutes.
Thanks, Vicky. Thanks for having me, everyone. As Vicky said, we're going to have a really practical session for the next 40 minutes. And we're going to do, hopefully you picked up on all the promotional material, we're going to have a go at something called sketchnoting. So if anyone's come across sketchnoting before, you will be a little bit ahead of the game. If you've not come across sketchnoting before, sketchnoting is visual note-taking. And it is all about ideas, not art. Please don't worry if you think, oh, I'm no good at drawing, I didn't do art at school. Please don't worry about that. It's how we capture ideas, or how we can capture ideas into a visual representation, into our visual notes. And it's a really useful tool, not just for our little wellbeing session this evening, but also potentially something you could use in your coaching or volunteering practice, at your club, with your athletes, your young people, participants, any kind of projects you might be running at your club. Particularly useful for reflection, but we'll have a look at that a little bit later on briefly. So it's good for note taking. You'll find maybe you'll find a little bit of calm this evening. It's great for calming a busy mind that's all over the place, trying to remember what we need to do as we start to get going again in the sporting world. Useful for planning and organizing, great for reflecting and summarizing, particularly if you're asking yourself to capture an idea succinctly. You can't use lots of waffle and word to get away with what you're trying to reflect on or share. And it's a great way, and hopefully for many of you, a new way for being creative and innovative within your coaching practice. So, excuse me, here's a couple of sketchnote examples. I have used sketchnoting now for about 18 months. There's an example there that I had from last year, March, April, May last year, spark ideas for adapting your coaching. And this was particularly when we were moving towards being not able to meet face-to-face and to having to maybe deliver sessions remotely, online, via Zoom, etc. And then I've got another one there that is from a kindness by post. If you're interested in anything to boost your mood and you like sending things in the post and getting things in the post, highly recommend that as a project. Just search kindness by post on social media and you'll come across it. And this was last summer's project. It was a summary, a bit of a Wordle, if you like, a sketch-noted Wordle of all the summary of the words used in the feedback. So what we're aiming for tonight is a little sketch note, as you can see, a mixture of words, pictures, by the end of this evening's session. So something like this might be what you're after. So hopefully you've got your pen and paper ready. If you've got black pens, colours with you, brilliant, crack on, use them as best you can. So let's have a bit of a warm up. First thing I want you to do is I would like you to sketch 6 different doodles. This is on your first page. This is our warm up page. Like any good coach or volunteer, we want to get started. Sometimes we start with a cup of tea. Sometimes we start with a little bit of a a game or an activity. So what I'd like you to do is to sketch 6 different doodles. They can be different to mine, of course. That would be great. I'm going to give you a minute or so to have a go at that. Okay, next warm-up activity, we're going to keep the pace moving, is I would like you to write your name in 3 different fonts. Okay, it doesn't have to be too neat and tidy. So maybe one is your everyday handwriting. Maybe one is your writing a card, a special card to someone, your really neat handwriting. And I know that my handwriting has different standards of neatness. Have a try at a font that is maybe, I want to say a bit 3D, maybe like a bubble text, something where you could, you create a space that you could put other little sketch notes inside, maybe have a little go. If you're stuck, maybe have a look around your room and see how different things are written in different fonts if you're stuck for inspiration. So it might be a book, might be a picture you've got, maybe it's some wording on a picture frame. See what you can do. So if you've got a really long name, feel free to shorten it as well. Maybe do your initials. Okay, warm up number 3. I'd like you to draw a person. So whatever that person looks like for you. So a little story about me and my people. When I first started sketchnoting, I had a bit of a thing about people, because when I was at school in year 9, I grew up in Australia, we had to choose between PE or art. So I chose PE, worked in PE, sport, physical activity for, well, 25, 30 years now. And so I had a bit of a thing that I wasn't very good at drawing people. I can draw other things. I'm okay with sort of shapes that are a bit more geometric, houses, a little bit of landscapes is okay, but people I was a bit nervous about. So I just started with stick people, and I've stuck with my stick people. I like them. I keep them simple, and I find I can add character and potentially show my stick people doing lots of different activities. So it might be that I'm going to set you a little bit of a challenge. If you've done one stick person, I want you to have a go at a stick person, maybe on a bike, or what does it look like if they're swimming? I've got my running example there. I use my running example all the time. But maybe think about what might it look like? What might it look like if they were sitting cross-legged or sat on a chair, or there was a group of people coming together, not having to be socially distant, of course. So hopefully you've got a couple of different people, because you might use that a little bit later on. They might represent yourself. So if you wear glasses, maybe you might pop glasses on them, or maybe you're known for a distinctive bobble hat. Maybe you could pop that on. That would be great as well. We're going to move on to warm up number 4. I'd like you to draw 3 different arrows. So arrows within sketchnoting are really useful for lots of different reasons. They can help us set a direction of a story or a path. So if you were doing some reflective practice and you wanted to talk about, maybe you're loosely following the Gibbs reflective cycle, and you wanted to follow and describe what happened, and then you had different stages that you wanted to have your sketch note take your thinking through to capture your ideas about some of your reflections. Using arrows are great for that. As you can see, I've got a big chunky arrow there. Really useful if I want to maybe put some words inside that to help with a message. And of course, arrows have their own meaning, don't they? We can talk about progress. We can talk about improvement by using arrows. We can talk about something maybe being a difficult journey or a difficult path, popping a little squiggle in, or a couple of humps and bumps. That would be great as well. So useful for your arrows. Oh, look, number 5, warm up number 5. Can you draw, you can choose a flag or a banner, or I've even got on there like a signpost. So flags and banners, signposts are really useful. So a flag can be useful if you are talking about maybe countries. So you could put someone's flag in. I did something recently with that, and I had to Google up the flag for Nepal, but it helped me to put the idea of Nepal without actually writing the word Nepal, but I could have done that as well. Maybe a banner is useful for a heading or something to celebrate. If you're celebrating, banners and kind of bunting also indicate a celebration. And signposts are really good if you're talking about having to make decisions, so decision making, maybe making choices, coming to a crossroads, all those kind of ideas we can capture visually, sometimes with the idea of a signpost. Okay, great. Hopefully we've got some great flags, banners or signposts being drawn. Okay, warm up number 6, we're nearly there. I'd like you to have a go at drawing 3 different faces. So you can either add these to the people you've drawn, depends on how big they are, how you've drawn them, or just draw some faces. And try and add some emotion to your faces. So whatever that might be, happy face, tired face, sad face. My face at the bottom with a big O for the mouth, that's my talking face. I do that a lot, particularly if I'm quoting someone or I'm wanting to share some news, and I would add a speech bubble alongside it. I find adding different hair and hats and glasses, sometimes scarves, those kind of things can help add character to faces as well. Okay, super. So hopefully you're all warmed up. You've got going a little bit, not being too self-conscious about your sketch notes, and hopefully some ideas are starting to flow of how you might match your ideas with how you visually represent them. So I want you to have a new page, whether that's turning over the page you've just been warming up on or choosing a new page. This is just a little bit of a preparation for, we're going to have a look at the 5 ways to well-being. So within each of the sections of 5 ways, there's obviously 5 ways, I'd like you to divide your page into 6 sections. That's because I want one extra section to be your title. So I've got some examples here. You could divide them like spokes on a wheel, which was the example I shared earlier. You could do a bit of a easy table 3x2 format, or maybe you want to have something a bit more creative. I know I've in the past done the 5 ways to well-being with some balloons, and each of my ideas has gone into those balloons to show that they're a collection and they're part of the same piece. Okay, so I don't want you to worry too much about being perfect. Put in as many words as you like. If you're a bit nervous about your drawings, and just add some sketches to add emphasis to your words, or if you're feeling a little bit like you'd like a bit more of a challenge, then please feel free to try and sketch it all, and you keep your words to a minimum, so the challenge is yours. So let's have a look. In section number 1, what I'd like you to do, so you might want to put a little bit of title of Be Active. So the 5 ways to well-being, just before we get into Be Active, 5 ways to well-being is recognised by Mind, it's recognised by the NHS, and it's used as a really basic foundation of making sure there are evidence-based things that we can do to keep our mental well-being well, so that we don't turn it into mental ill-being, okay? And there are 5 of them, as you would say, and they're quite simple, and they're all research-based, there's evidence-based. If you've ever come across an organisation called Action for Happiness, they also use it. They have an acronym called GREAT Dream, and the GREAT is the 5 ways to the well-being. They just happen to use different letters to explain the same ideas. They're part of their acronym. So I'd encourage you to go and have a look at some of those. So first thing I want you to do in your first section is looking at being active. So in the next month or so, you choose the time. So it might be the next month, it might be the next 3 months, it's up to you. I'd like you to draw something that you would like to do to be active. So it might be that you're getting back into triathlon, or maybe it's you're going to try something completely different. Maybe some of you are maybe planning on getting married and you're going to take up some dance lessons, and that's your new way to be active. Or maybe you're going to go back to something you've always loved doing, and that's how you're going to be active. Maybe someone's signing up for a marathon or a virtual marathon, or it might just be that you want to get back and do loads of triathlon events. Perfectly happy with that as well. So I want you to sketch, what can you do? What will you enjoy doing? and think about what's going to improve your mood, so stuff that you love doing. Okay, you'll note on there, I have got a bicycle. Vicky, don't laugh. Will, Claire, don't laugh. I have got a bicycle. You'll note that it's not accurate. I'm fairly sure that bicycle wouldn't work, but it represents the idea of a bicycle, so it doesn't have to be technically accurate. I'm sure some of you will have better sketches of bicycles than mine, but I kind of shorthand mine to a seat and a couple of wheels with spokes on. You can see I've also included high intensity training there, high intensity interval training, just as an idea of I struggled to think about how I could draw that and sketch that. So I just used the words themselves, put a bit of sweat in it, a bit of yellow and orange for colour to imply I was getting quite hot and sweaty. So think about how you can add some of the meaning, maybe through the use of colour, if you were to add that to some of your words. Great. I'm wondering, Claire, if there's anyone who might be happy to share their screen to put their video on and maybe share what they've done for their first go of their 5 Ways to Wellbeing sketchnote for their Be Active.
I can have a look. I think, can people unmute them? Don't know if people can raise their hands or anything if they want to do that.
Yeah, let's see if anyone's able to. You'll probably be able to see everyone, because it's a really busy session. It's fabulous. Fine, maybe people need a bit more of a warm up to see how they're getting on.
Oh, I've got somebody.
Oh, go on then.
Oh, or is it Will?
Is it Will? I'm happy to see what Will's done.
Oh, there might be.
Go on then, Will.
I'm not taking full credit. These are actually Michelle's.
Oh, Will, I think because you've got your background on, it's
bear with me, let me take my background off.
Don't know if everyone can see that. Oh, Mike, you've got yours. Thanks, Mike. Great, super. Okay, we've got some people sharing. That's great. Thank you so much. I like the highlighted of the red colour, Will. That works well. Emma, thank you, Emma. Oh, we've got some is that Pinterest, Emma? Is that a logo? I don't recognise that logo.
No,
forgive
it's Peloton.
Oh, forgive me, of course. I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
So you're going to be doing some more Peloton. And you've also got on there
sleep.
A bit more rest and a bit more swimming.
Yeah. And actually do a triathlon rather than just keep coaching.
Now that's a nice challenge. That's a nice Be Active challenge, and that can sometimes be forgotten when we're coaching and volunteering. Now I want to say Jack, but I think that's your initials, JAC. You've got your yoga, and it looks like you're on a yoga mat. Is that right? You've made it look like a yoga mat. It looks great. I like it. So calming yoga, stretching. I like that. So you've been inspired by the mat as well. Thank you, JAC. Jack, I don't know. I've got a Jack, but I don't know. Maybe you have just got your initials up today. Okay, super. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the second way to wellbeing. They're not really numbered, but it's just the order I put them in today. So the second one we're going to have a look at is giving. So we know that giving helps our personal well-being. So it's not the fact that we're improving the well-being of other people by giving to them, but we have lots of different emotions attached to giving, and it helps us feel good. So I'm sure many of you coach and volunteer to give back. Maybe that might be one idea. So you give your time. Maybe you also give your kind words or your presence somewhere. So maybe you help out volunteering in other ways. Could also be maybe a random act of kindness. I don't know if anyone's ever given some strangers a bunch of daffodils that they've got from the supermarket, just handed it to them, or as simply as holding the door open. You can also make sure you give yourself a break and make sure you look after yourself. And then one of my favorite challenges is to have a day where you smile at every stranger that you pass. always sparks up a conversation here or there, which always makes me feel better. And the research shows that giving is very good for your mental health. Particularly sports volunteering actually is very good. There's some great research on that as well, from some research from a couple of years ago called Hidden Diamonds, and it highlights the fact that people who volunteer are something like 10 or 15%, report to be 10 to 15% happier with what they're doing, and their well-being is better. So I've got here kind words, a bit of time, maybe some little gifts. As you can see, I've mixed it up with various different watches, clocks, maybe some different ways of smiling. I do sometimes do the too over enthusiastic smiling. Have to calm down when I get into this sometimes, or it might be a small gift for someone as well. So I'm going to give you a moment. What would you put in? What might you do in the next month that is around giving? Maybe you give yourself another chance to do something, or give someone else another chance to do something. Give some extra time. You might gift yourself the book you've been fancying getting, or the latest piece of kit that you're fancying that you've maybe saved up over lockdown. You could give yourself that, maybe as a gift to yourself. So it doesn't always have to be birthday or Christmas. Claire, I'm going to go again. I'm going to ask and see if anyone's willing to share. Oh, listen. So you're going to do lots of listening and show detailed interest. Like it. I like the listening as well. How you repeated it. That puts good emphasis. I like that. Let me see if anyone else is brave enough to pop something up in front of their screen. Super. Oh, Lorraine, thank you. Lorraine, do you feel happy unmuting, Lorraine, and sharing what you've drawn, if you're happy to do that? You've got a couple of pictures in there, which I love. So you've got a clock, I can see some time.
So yeah, so to give time, family, really, because don't get time to see them. And then I was kind today because I went straight to the shops after my night shifts and brought my daughter some gifts she didn't expect, so she's had them tonight. And then smiling at people, I think that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite a stressful job, so that's quite nice. And then I need a new chain ring for my TT bike, so that's a gift to me that I need to get.
That's a gift to you. So you're sharing or you're giving. Lorraine, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
That's great. It's a great selection there. Sometimes it is those little unexpected things, isn't it? A bunch of flowers for someone, whether it's a neighbour or your mum or someone at home, or a little unexpected gift for a child. I try not to do it too often, but lockdown's been hard for that. Thank you, Lorraine. I really appreciate you sharing. Okay, we're going to move on to our third aspect of the 5 ways to well-being. So taking notice. So taking notice of the world around us is really important. It helps us to see the changes in the world, to see progress. Sometimes it can help to just bring us a little bit of joy in something new that we might have noticed, particularly if, I don't know, we might have been doing lots and lots of walking over the past 12 months. And are we now starting to notice the buds on the trees, or some flowers coming up and blooming? We've got loads of daffodils near where I am, but what is coming next? And these things that we notice can be part of everyday life. And it's useful to also use all of our senses. So it was earlier this morning, and I popped out, taking my son to school. I was popping back, and I noticed how noisy the birds were, really noisy. And I normally wouldn't notice that because I'd be rushing back and already, planning out my work day, whatever it might be. But I just took, it was just a couple of minutes just to notice and to listen to how many different bird sounds I could hear. Not that I know what each of them match up to, but yeah, I was being a bit more curious about my surroundings. And sometimes the taking notice can be within our own household, it can be at our coaching sessions. And the taking notice, particularly if it's at our coaching sessions, it can be that we notice a change in someone. We maybe also match this up with a bit of giving and give a compliment, or give some time by asking people their questions of how they're doing at the moment and how they're getting on. So some examples that I've done recently, and I love spring for its noticing the changes of what's coming. I love autumn for the same reason. But one of the things that I do every year is I grow sunflowers, and I love watching the sunflowers growing from these tiny seeds, so tiny. And the ones that I grow are the sort of 2+ meter ones. We love measuring them every year. And they're massive. And I love noticing the patterns of them. I love noticing how they unfurl. You know, how do they die off? How does it all work? And it's just a little bit of something that's a bit different. And maybe you have the opportunity to notice, maybe you do open water swimming. So maybe you have an opportunity to notice differences in the water. Or maybe when you're out on your bike, you're noticing changes of the world around you as you're maybe going the same routes or similar areas with your athletes, with your cyclists, your triathletes. Yeah, it's great. We can use all of our senses, whether that's noticing, oh, hang on, someone's making toast downstairs. I think I fancy some toast. And enjoying some of those senses and some of the memories that they can bring back and evoke as well. So let me see who has got some things that they are wanting to pay more attention to in the next month or so. What are you looking forward to noticing? So we're halfway through April, going into May. We'll start to see lots of blooms and blossoms. The weather's going to start changing. Maybe like me yesterday, I really noticed the warmth on my face when I was out of the wind. I was over near Scarborough, and it's very windy. And then the contrast to when I was in a more protected area of how warm the sun was. I really appreciated noticing that.
I've got some layers. I've done some for this one.
Oh, let me have a look. Who's this? Or now, Mike, that didn't match. I've got Claire, and then I'm going to come to you, Mike. Claire, it might make you invisible because you've got your background on.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do it with my background. Background. Oh, you can't see. Oh,
I'm going to go to Mike because Mike Portis, you pop yours up.
I'm going to learn about trees.
Are you? Have you got lots of different ones near you?
Yeah, and I've no idea what they are. Some are green,
yeah,
and that's about it.
Okay.
That's the limit of my knowledge.
Have you got a little guidebook? How are you going to do your noticing, Mike?
Yeah, with a guidebook.
Yeah, with a guidebook. So, and if I quite often will take a photograph and then go back home and try and find it if I haven't got my guidebook with me. Oh, that sounds like a great noticing, and that will be great when you're out and about with your athletes or your club. Oh, there's some great. I don't know. I'm an Aussie, so there's not many eucalyptus trees kicking about where I am in Yorkshire, but I get what you mean. What have we got here? Oh, that's great. JC, I wish I knew your full name so I could say it, because you've got some great stuff. Being more aware of your loved ones' situations, progress, and frustrations. That is a really important one. Thank you for sharing that. So taking notice of maybe people who come to your sessions, whether they're, or family, friends, of how they're getting on. I think at the moment there is an assumption that because we are easing restrictions, that everyone's happy and it's all going to be great and positive. But I think some people will still be a bit cautious, maybe have some worries that they're still carrying with them. So that's a really great one. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that a lot. Okay, going to go on to number 4 now. This is one of my favorite ones. It's Jason. Is it Jason? Is that right? Is it Jason? Oh, it's gone blurry because it's too close. It's fine. Oh, it is Jason. Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Super. I'm going to go on to connect. This is one of my favorites. There's only 5, but I do love connection. I talk a lot about connection. I think that connecting and building and having relationships with different people is really powerful to us as humans. And the connection doesn't always have to be face-to-face or on Zoom, of course. Could be talking with others, of course, listening, just being there sometimes, sitting alongside somebody. I don't know if anyone's been out and about today and have just enjoyed being in the space, in a connected space with other people. It might be, of course, it's on the phone or on Zoom like we're doing now. And it can be with anyone that you want to spend time with, people in your community, friends, family, neighbours. Maybe you're desperate to have some club sessions starting again, and just spending time with other people who love triathlon, who love being triathletes. And I've got some examples here that are just different ways we can do this connection. And it is looking at, are we sending a little postcard? As you know, I shared earlier, I take part in something called Kindness by Post, so I love that. As well as smiling at strangers, I also talk to people when I go out and say hello. It's quite nice to say hello to people, get to know people in your community, quite often pick up little tips. Oh, the voluntary library's got some extra puzzles in today. It's a little note, or little bits and bobs. And you can represent your connection in lots of different ways. So it can be the actual way that you want to connect with people, or it could be that you're just going to do a little, I do a little network on the top right hand corner there, where I've got my smiley faces, and I just show that people are connecting, and that can represent to me the idea of meeting in a group. Or it might be that I want to share ideas, or I want to ask for some advice, whatever it might be. So lots of different ways that you can connect, and connection is really important. Connection is great for our well-being. It's great for helping build our relationships, and we know that it comes up if we talk about improving relationships that aren't that great, whether that's with our athletes or other coaches or volunteers. Just listening to people, finding out how they've been getting on, just generally, is really important. And taking the space to let other people connect with us as well, not always rushing ourselves on. I love connection. It's a great one of the 5 ways to well-being. I'm wondering if people are connecting or have had different connections with work. And it might be that some people, either yourselves who are on the session tonight, or people that you're coaching back at the club, maybe they've been disconnected and they're really looking forward to connecting. They might be nervous about connecting. So what might you be doing? Have you got anything planned for your club to help people connect, rather than just assuming that it will happen really smoothly? So how can that help their well-being as well as your own? Let's see. I'll pop my grid up again. Jason. Yeah, lots of ways to reach out. Thanks, Jason. Could make their possibly tough day. Yes. I know myself, I work from home, as many people do at the moment. I've started a new job in the past couple of months, and I've not actually been into the building that I work in. So I know all my new colleagues via Teams. So that will be a really interesting day of connection for me when I finally get to go to my office up in Newcastle. Anyone else got some different ways they're going to connect? Had lots of examples, haven't we, this past year? New ways that we've not thought of before, whether it's a little quiz with family, maybe a socially distanced walk. That's a great one, combining 2 of the 5 ways to well-being. Maybe even 3 if you're giving some of your time to be a listening ear. Okay, I'm going to move on from connect. Our last one. Our last one is to keep learning. Okay, so I've put lots of different examples of learning here. Maybe you're studying for something, a qualification, completing something, whether that's for work or for pleasure or just part of your education that you're doing. Maybe, similar to Mike, I've got here, you're going to be learning about trees, which is great. I have this with birds. So my husband's an ecologist. We've been together a long time. You'd think I would know more British birds than I do. So I now have a little flip chart downstairs, like a little fold out concertina. I think it's called a Z card. And it's got lots of the birds on it. And so when they come to our bird feeders, I try and pay attention. I do get lots of them confused though, because they look quite similar to me. Maybe it's knitting, maybe it's chess, maybe you've been inspired by the Queen's Gambit, the program on a very popular streaming service. Maybe you've been inspired to start chess. Maybe you're just going to learn how to do a new warm-up at your club, or learn how to create a newsletter. So maybe putting your connection and your learning together for your club members. Could be lots of different things. It could be for fun, it could be for work, Could be a new experience, but it can also be something where you are revisiting or developing old skills. So it might be that you're refreshing. So don't think that learning always has to be new. Sometimes we can learn, unlearn, and then have to learn again. So interesting in what you might be thinking about learning. Give you time to do your sketch. This learning one might be in the next month, it might be a bit longer, depending on what you're thinking you might like to challenge yourself to do for your well-being. Who's happy to share something they're happy to learn? Use a step mentor. I don't know what a step mentor is, Jason. Brave and make mistakes. You with your yoga. So developing some of your yoga practice, which could be in lots of different ways, couldn't it? Learning part of the physical side or learning part of the mental or spiritual side. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Emma, what have you got? Oh, Emma, excellent. So Emma, you've got one of my favorite things is drawing a little laptop. So you have done a laptop how I normally draw a laptop if I'm scribbling for myself, if I'm sketchnoting for myself. So you've got, you're doing some psychology and you're also going to listen to some podcasts. Are there any podcasts you would recommend, Emma?
Oh golly, no, I'm just flitting through lots and lots at the minute, just finding things that excite me on the day. Yeah,
that's good. Do you listen to a podcast maybe when you're out walking or cycling?
I listen to loads of audiobooks.
Okay.
So yeah, so just a bit like when I'm walking the dogs or, you know.
So you're starting to combine some of your 5 ways to well-being. So it's a great example, Emma. Thank you for sharing that you don't need to do them individually. You can start to put them together. So it's interesting you put podcasts. So one of my things is I'm learning about how to make podcasts. I struggle with it a little bit. I go off track. I can't imagine anyone would imagine that about me, but I do go off track. Ah, thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate the emphasis on me as well. Thank you. That's great. We can use very simple lines to emphasize words that we're wanting to share. Super. Okay. So what I'd like you to do now is I'm conscious. I would love to see if we can let me get my screen. I can share. I'm trying to work out, Claire, if it's best for me to unshare and then share again later. Happy to take your advice. I would love to see if anyone would be happy to share their whole sketch note. So if you've got a little moment now, you should have one space left. So pop your title in that. So it might be your name, obviously, as opposed to my name, and the 5 ways to well-being, or 5 ways to well-being for April or May, however you might want to give a title to it. Okay.
If you want to see people's screens, it might be easier to unshare your screen.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
As a gallery view or something.
Right, I will come back to sharing. Now, Sarah, you have un-cameraed yourself. What's the word for un-cameraed? I don't know. Brilliant. So you've got yours. Super. So you've done it portrait and you've got some colour going on there. Look at that. That looks great. Sarah, just unmute. Which section are you most pleased that you've sketched this evening?
It's all very pink and I'm really not a pink person. It was just the first pen I came to hand. I think that I'm terrible also at drawing. But I think this section is the big thing for me, which is the swim. Swim is where I put my thoughts together. It's the exercise that doesn't hurt me, and being able to swim and look at the sky and see the fish underneath you is, you know, it's one of those strong things that is been difficult during lockdown. So that's probably my strongest little picture.
Thank you for sharing, Sarah.
Very well.
No, so you have just highlighted perfectly. So do not worry about the whole I'm no good at drawing, because you have just done sketchnoting. You have just exemplified that to a really high standard. You have some drawings, but you have been able to explain much more than your drawings. So if I had looked at that, I would say swimming, tree, birds. They don't have any meaning to me, but what you've explained is, and I don't know whether it's in learning or giving or being active. I don't know which one of those that might fit in for you, but it could fit in any of those. And you've talked about the experience. So in your mind, you've captured the experience with those 3 little drawings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That is the art of sketchnoting. So you get a gold star. Super.
Yay, well done to me.
I know, well done. But
thank you.
You've just done some sketchnoting, so don't worry about being. It's not portrait artist of the year. It's not Grace and Kerry's art club. Do you know what I mean? It's about capturing your ideas. And you are more likely. The research shows when you're doing sketchnoting, there's something. If anyone wants to look at this, look up something called dual, as in 2, dual coding. And it helps us remember things. So if you were to do that from a reflective practice point of view or a planning point of view, you're more likely to remember it later on. Maybe you're doing a piece of learning by adding some sketches. In reality, the whole of my degree was just sketching on notes. Perfect. So, which helps absolutely you to right. Thanks, Liz. Super. Thank you, Sarah. Jason, I did see you showing yours. So Jason, yours is a great example of using the idea of sketchnoting to organize the thoughts together. So some of them are more written word, and some of them are a little bit like the yoga mat, is having some broader ideas. Is there any of those that you think you might be able to add some detail with a sketch of any of those? So you've got your abbreviations there, you've got a hashtag, sometimes that's useful. I think, Jason, you're going to have to unmute and tell me what that hashtag means.
Hello.
Hi.
That's 5 weeks to well-being. You just said it, so I just wrote it down as a hashtag. Ah,
perfect. 5 ways to well-being. Love it. And you could, but you
so we can
5 weeks.
We can 5 ways. Yeah, we can share the royalties. We can share the royalties on that. Okay.
To be fair, I don't think I'm going to go up against the NHS or Mind. I'm happy to have it. If anyone is interested in more detail around the 5 ways to well-being, there's a great organisation called the New Economics Foundation, which sounds really weird for looking at well-being. But they are the people that looked at the research and the science behind the 5 ways, if that makes sense. And they've got some great examples of how it all fits together. Jason, thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else happy to share? I'm just checking on my second page. I wonder if there's anyone. It might be that I get to see them a little bit later on social media. Okay, I'm just conscious of time. So Claire, let me just share my last screen. So I am just, oh, hang on, that's me. So I just want to say thank you for engaging in something a little bit different as part of the Reboot conference this week. Maybe not quite what you're expecting, but I would hope that just the act of having a little bit of go at sketchnoting and think about your own well-being for 40 minutes. You've got a few little prompts. Maybe it's provoke something that you're going to try in the next month or so, or the next 5 weeks to well-being. I'm going to nick that actually, Jason. 5 ways in the 5 weeks. I'm going to nick that definitely. About what you might do. Particularly, I would encourage you to look after yourselves. Obviously, we've all been through a tough 12 or 13 months, and it can be quite easy to let ourselves get away with ourselves over the next couple of weeks, when it might be an opportunity to just look after our well-being and be a bit more conscious for a little while longer. But thank you so much for that. It would be great. I know that the team would be really thrilled if you could share on social media. I know Twitter, there's the hashtag, there's the tag there of @TryEngland, and there's the, I've forgotten it now. I'm so sorry, Claire. I want to say the Great Reboot.
The Big Reboot.
I knew it was something fabulous. I was going to say the Fabulous Reboot, but I knew it wasn't that one. So the boot. Put your little hashtag in there as well. I'd love to see them. If anyone wants to connect in and ask me more questions after the session, please feel free to do so. I love chatting, sketchnoting, or if anyone says, Liz, where can I find out more? I've got some great links. Please get in touch with me via Twitter as well. I'm on LinkedIn too. But otherwise, thank you so much. I'm going to hand back to the Triathlon team.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Liz, for that. We wanted to do something a little bit different, something that people potentially had never done before, so hence bringing Liz in to do some sketch notes, and I hope you've really enjoyed that. like I said, it's something that it just kind of tops off the day, something that kind of finishes on a bit of a high. We would absolutely love for you guys to share some of the stuff. Sorry, I didn't have a camera. We'd really love for you guys to share some of your stuff on their social media. So please upload stuff, as long as it's not rude, and with the hashtag The Big Reboot. And that's it, really. We're very happy to stay on for a few minutes afterwards if anybody has any questions. But other than that, again, massive thank you for everybody's engagement this evening, and hope you have a great rest of the week. We start again at 6 o'clock tomorrow with a drop-in session. But yeah, just jump into the sessions. You have all the links on your conference pack. So thank you very much and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
And the great thing now is you've all got a sketchnoting skill that you can use for the rest of your sessions this week. Wouldn't it be great to see some sketchnoting summaries of the rest of the sessions for the big reboot? But thanks, everyone. Happy sketchnoting.